accept and cherish that in that moment whenever it happens.
Did you just put the ring on, or are you in the first few years of your marriage? Welcome to the First Year Marriage Show, the podcast dedicated to helping newlyweds navigate the first few years of marriage. My husband, Marcus, and I will be sharing marriage tips to help you build a strong foundation for your marriage. We believe having a strong foundation is essential to having a happy, healthy, and lasting marriage. We will also be learning from the experiences of awesome married couples who have been where you are today, taking from them lessons to help you build a strong foundation for the lasting marriage you desire. Take a deep breath, relax, learn, and enjoy the show. Welcome back to the First Year Marriage Show. We're really excited to bring you a new episode this week. We're 3 weeks into the month of July already. This year is going by so fast. We really hope that you're getting closer to achieving your goals for 2015. In episode 16, we talked about investing in your marriage. We encourage you to think about one thing that you could do to become a better spouse this year. We would love to know if you've achieved this goal, if you have gone on to pick other goals, or how, and just in general, how that's going for you. Send us an email to firstyearmarriage@gmail.com. If you're new to this podcast, check out the past episodes. They're filled with really great lessons from other married couples who have been married anywhere from 1 year to 20 plus years. They're just sharing their insights into all the lessons they learned in their marriage that would be really helpful for others to learn in their first year or anytime really. For links and resources mentioned in this episode, in the show notes, visit firstyearmarriage.com/36. Have a great week and enjoy the show.
Hello, listeners, and welcome to this week's episode of the First Year Marriage Show podcast. I am your host, Marcus Kusi, and our guest for this week is Jason Pockrandt. Jason has been married for 2 years. He's father to a beautiful girl, and he lives in Bay City, Michigan. He's also a speaker, life coach of Live to Give, and the author of the Confident Father's Guidebook, 5 Steps to Personal Transformation, Rediscover Your Worth, and Live the Life You Desire. Jason additionally helps fathers and husbands to reconnect their passions and purpose by speaking to them and serving them as a life coach. Jason, welcome to the podcast, and can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Marcus, thank you for having me on the show. I appreciate it. As you mentioned earlier, I've been married for 2 years now to my lovely wife, Chandra. We just had our first child 3 months ago. Today's actually her 3-month-old birthday.
Oh, congrats.
That counts. So, little baby girl named Lennox. My first one, and she's a lovely little girl. So living in Michigan, like you said, and just working on building the dream and being the best husband and father I can be and living a legacy worth leaving. So
that's really amazing. Can you tell us a little bit about your Live to Give coaching program?
Yeah, definitely. Well, the short version is I had lost my dad actually in 2004. And after that, I had ended up going to college. Spent the next 5 years trying to sort through things and figure out where I wanted to go in life and what I wanted to do. And eventually I'd gotten a job out of college that I couldn't stand. I had $20,000 in student loan debt, and I'd gotten to a point where I hit rock bottom. So I took a leap of faith. I left the job that I had, and I was fortunate enough to make some good connections with individuals around my community that helped kind of show me the way again and help me rediscover my own worth and got me into the coaching and understanding that. And eventually, actually a couple weeks later, I launched Live to Give, and I'd started working on helping individuals and helping young couples actually get their finances together and be able to work together and stop the struggle. So Live to Give was the company that I had started to help serve them.
Thank you very much for giving us a lot of insights about this company that you started to help young couples with their finances and with their, not just with their finances, but also with their life in general as fathers and husbands.
You're welcome.
When did you start it? Did you start it after you met your wife or before you met your wife?
I actually I launched the business in March, right around the time before we got married. So I'd started Live to Give in March of 2013. And my wife and I actually got married May 10th, 2013. So we were engaged for about a year before that, before I started the business. So right about the same time there.
Oh, okay. And how did you meet your wife?
Well, I met my wife. I was working actually. I was actually working at the mall in a retail store. I was working at Spencer Gifts, and I had a pretty close relationship with my manager there, my female manager. Her and I were pretty close friends, and my wife was actually her best friend. And there's a funny story. My wife at the time, or my wife had called her friend at work at the time when the Pistons are playing, and she called and left a message and asked her about the score of the Pistons game. And I took my boss's phone and listened to her voicemail, and I thought she sounded kind of cute, so I actually called her back myself and left a message. And then a couple of days later, my friend took me out to her house, and we met and said, "Hey, you should meet my friend Chandra. I think you'd really like her." And we met that night, and then just kind of things hit it off from there, and we started talking and started going out. So the rest is history.
Wow. Good thing that you picked up that voicemail and you listened to it and you actually returned the call.
Definitely.
You never know what actions is going to help you make that big decision that is going to play a big role for the rest of your life.
Right.
How will you guys describe your first year in one or two words?
One or two words. I would say our first year of marriage was outlandishly exciting.
Can you please expound on that and let us know what you mean by that?
Well, we had a lot to go through. When we first got married, we were actually living together for we had been living together for about 2 years or 3 years before we had gotten married. So in that first year, it took quite a few changes and for us to get used to living under the same roof with each other, if you will, and getting through those challenges and those enlightening conversations, if you will.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to diving into the challenges that you guys had, because I have talked to a lot of couples who've told me that they were married, they lived together before they got married, and because they lived together before they got married, they didn't really have any struggles during that first year. But you lived together with your wife before you guys got married, and even though you had lived together before you got married, you're still having a lot of adjustments or challenges during that first year. Can you share some of the adjustments that you guys had to go through, even though you lived together prior to getting married?
Well, for me, one of the biggest ones was having gone through college, ending up graduating college with $19,000 in student loans. I received a criminal justice degree that I wanted absolutely nothing to do with, and then getting the job working third shift that I absolutely hated. One of the biggest challenges for me was making the decision that once we got engaged, I actually made the decision once we got engaged that it was time for us to put our finances together, and it was time for us, if we were going to get married and become one as a couple, then it was time that we put our finances together. So one of the biggest adjustments and the challenges that I think we faced was the idea of not splitting everything separately, like the idea of shifting from I'll pay for dinner tonight, you'll pay next week, or I pay the cable bill and you pay the rent bill, and then I pay Netflix and you pay electric. And so it was interesting to see the changes as we started to work together, especially in the area of our finances.
Yeah. What are some of the changes that you guys experienced as you started working together as a couple?
Some of the changes, you say?
Yeah, that you started experiencing. Because I know if you are not combining your finances, things are different. And once you start combining your finances, there are things that will come up that you might not think about or wouldn't come up if you hadn't combined your finances.
Yes, well, I think for us, the biggest changes were just the closeness that we had developed, the teamwork and the solidarity that we were able to develop in our relationship at such an early stage by combining our finances, because we had made the decision right off the bat after we had got engaged. I had put my wife and I through Financial Peace University, the Dave Ramsey class. And so that was the enlightening factor for us, that we had decided that getting married, understanding that the debt, no matter how much we tried to slice the pie, if we were to split things, my student loans would become her debt and her debt would become my debt. So it really brought us closer together to work together and to pay off the student loans that first year. And actually, by putting our finances together, we were able to save up enough cash to pay for our wedding as well, which I don't think would have been possible had we not been able to work together toward that.
It's really exciting to know that when you combine your finances, it makes a lot of things a whole lot easier, and it makes moving towards your financial goals, like it expedites that process for you. And personally, I know with some couples, they would say that, they have to have separate accounts or separate finances, and some couples, they'll have to combine their finances. And I don't know, what do you think if there's a couple listening to us right now and they have separate finances, or there's a couple who have a joint finances, what would you tell them to be able to make a better decision as to whether they should combine their finances or keep their finances separate?
I would simply give them the advice that from my personal experience with my wife and I having working together with our finances, I can tell them that when we were at our low points and we've together made no more than $35,000 a year, we working together were able to pay off $13,000 in student loans in a year, in our first year of being married, as well as saving up enough cash for us to pay for the wedding. And had we decided to keep our funding and our finances separate, I could have quickly foresaw the arguments and the complications that would have arose as we planned the wedding, and then moving forward even after the wedding, trying to decide about the wedding money, the gifts that we had gotten from the wedding and the presents that we had received. And to me, it was just a no-brainer. So I've always viewed it as us becoming one together. So it's never really been a question of keeping our finances separate. But I think if you want your marriage to flourish, and if you want to eliminate the potential for foolish, frivolous finances and financial fights, then I would recommend that you take your finances and you learn to work together and provide that closeness with each other that's required for a marriage to be successful.
Thank you very much for sharing your insight with us, because I know some of our listeners might want to ask you this question, might be thinking whether they should follow your route or they shouldn't follow your route.
Definitely, yeah. I would suggest they put it all together and work together, because I think that's what a marriage is all about. Yeah. But it's my opinion.
Yeah. Everybody has their own opinions, but I'm glad you're sharing it for our listeners so someone can learn from your story also. So apart from the finances that you guys had issues with, was there any other adjustments that you guys had to make after you got married?
Yeah, for me, I think one of the biggest adjustments was just living together. And I say that for myself personally. We had gotten together at a young age. So I was only 19 when I had gotten together with my girlfriend, with my wife now, but I was only 19 at the time. And so I had gone straight from living at home to my very first apartment was actually one that I had gotten with her. And she had gone from living with her parents and had an apartment first and then moved in with me. So for me, one of the struggles was adjusting to that idea of living with somebody, and her getting used to the idea of moving in with me as well after spending a couple years on her own in her own apartment and coming and going as she pleased and doing what she wanted to do, and not having somebody always here at home when she was coming and going. So that was an interesting adjustment as well.
Did this adjustment happen whilst you guys were not married, or it happened during the time that you were married?
Well, we had this was when right before we got married. We had moved in right away. We had lived with each other for a while, so the adjustment was mostly not having that space separately before we had gotten married. I think was what created some of the challenges after we were together.
Did you guys have any argument during that first year at all?
Yeah, we had a few of those. There was a couple times in the beginning where I was a little bit too needy. I had troubles with her going out with certain friends of hers, and her activities she wanted to do, and she wanted to hang out and have more fun, and I wanted to just hang out at home and be together and be romantic and watch movies and all those things and stuff. But so just understanding each other's personality types and the idea of what was fun for one person, what was fun for her versus what was fun for me, and making accommodations and compromises.
With the accommodation and compromise that you guys did you have to sit down and talk about it, or did you guys have to go talk to a married couple or go seek a counselor?
No, we talked it through with each other for the most part. We had gone through marriage classes at the church before we had gotten married. And then they actually, I think at one point we had gone and talked to a counselor about a couple of things, but it was nothing that we weren't ever able to work out between the two of us after we sat down and came to our conclusions, shared our piece.
I'm really happy you were able to resolve those issues, because it's during those times that if you're not careful, you might bring the dreaded divorce word onto the table and be like, hey, I don't think this is something that we can do long term, because we are having a ton of issues, and going to get the help or seeking the help from somewhere else or getting advice on how to make progress or resolve those differences and issues or adjustments that you're going through is something that is really beneficial in making sure you're able to build off of a good foundation for your marriage.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I agree with you.
Yeah. So I know you guys have been married for 2 years, and with 2 years of married life, there was a long time ahead of you, or there's a long journey ahead of you. But if you were to pick one thing or one struggle or one difficult time that you guys had in your marriage that you think really impacted your marriage or has impacted your marriage, what do you think it will be?
I would say the biggest challenge, the biggest challenge that had the hardest impact on us was the adjustment of our families. Having the relationship struggles that I've faced with my family, and having my family be around us as a married couple, and the dynamics, if you will, the dynamics of my family and my upbringing and my relationship with my family is the complete opposite of the dynamics and the closeness and the family environment that Chandra was brought up in. So two individuals, having both of us come up from a different family upbringing, and then to have us come together with such differences in how we do things like that has been an interesting, to say the least.
Yeah, it's not easy having those two different family backgrounds, because like I'm from Ghana and my wife actually is from the US, and even apart from just having completely different family upbringings, we also have completely different cultural upbringings, and it's very difficult to merge the two. But I know with compromise and with a lot of conversations and communication, you'll be able to resolve those issues. With you guys, due to how close your in-laws were, did you have any issues with the in-laws at all because you had different family upbringings?
No, we didn't have any issues. The only thing that actually arose for me personally was at times it was uncomfortable, because we would take, I would go with my wife and we'd go out to her family's house and they'd have big dinners and everyone would sit at the table, and I was kind of the outsider at first. I felt as if, it was that situation where I wasn't quite sure if I fit in yet or if I belonged, and I just wasn't used to that in my family, having lost my dad when I was 17. But even prior to that, it wasn't something that we really sat around the table together that often and ate dinner and shared and talked to each other. So going into that environment and being accepted, and that was kind of an interesting change for me to get used to.
And did your wife play any role in making that easier for you? Like, for instance, because I'm from a different culture or a different country, like I don't celebrate something like Thanksgiving. So when it's Thanksgiving time, and actually with the first one that I had to have with Ashley and my in-laws, I had to, seek her wisdom and her help to be able to make sure that I'm comfortable around everything going on. Did your wife have to help you with anything like that?
No, all she had to do was let me know that her dad loved to cook, and there was really good food. So whenever she said we were going to her mom and dad's for dinner, I would usually accommodate.
That is a really, really, really good plus. I'm really enjoying your story, and it's very unique because, having completely different family upbringings could definitely cause a lot of issues or struggles during that phase, especially when you're trying to mesh everything together. Because if you've had 20 years of training in one way and you get married to someone who has completely different training or upbringing than yours, it makes it very, very difficult to be able to mesh those things together, because you have a way of doing things and then your wife or your spouse has a way of doing their own things their own way, and coming together with a compromise sometimes it's not easy at all.
Not at all.
What are some of the funny or fun times that you guys had in your first year that if you were to share with our listeners, they are going to have a laugh and it's going to make their day a very happy one?
Well, I think one of the best times we shared together was we went on a trip we took a vacation down to Chicago. And it was the first time either one of us had been there. And we had went out and Chandra had put all of her energy into planning everything perfectly and precisely. And she had all the bus routes mapped out perfect and all the places we were going to visit and everywhere we were going to go and the pizza place and the cupcake shop and and all these things. And then at one point we went down to one of the parks. And as we were trying to cross one of the streets there, I actually ended up losing my bus pass. So we got to the point where we were stranded, lost, and I had no bus pass to get where we needed to go, and we couldn't find a terminal to get to the bus pass, to buy another bus pass. So we ended up spending about 6 blocks walking around the middle of Chicago trying to get our way back to the apartment complex, or the condo. And then the next night, actually, we had gone out again and got lost on our way to try to find the pizza place, and it started raining. And when I say raining, I should say it started pouring hysterically on us. So no umbrellas in the middle of Chicago, and we are completely soaked. But we made it. We made it to the pizza place, and actually I think it was on the way back from the pizza place. So we had some good food, and then got lost, and then had to walk through Chicago in the pouring rain together. But it was pretty awesome.
Yeah. That is not fun at all. Walking in the rain, like when it's downpouring, without any umbrella and having to walk for miles is definitely not fun. But it's one of those moments that, you know, as a married couple, whilst you're experiencing it, it probably won't be fun for you. But when you sit down maybe 2 or 3 years down the road, you'll be like, wow, those are some of the moments that you cherish a lot, that really lightens up your day or brings smiles onto your face.
It's one of our favorite memories.
Yeah, that's really good. So after you guys got married, I know you went to FPU. You went to see you took some counseling classes here and there. You had to talk to some relatives for advice here and there. What are some resources that you think really helped you guys during those early years or the first year that you guys were married that you think will help our listeners who are listening to us today improve their marriage?
Well, first and foremost, I can't recommend highly enough any young couple or any couple for that matter, as soon as they get married, to go through the Financial Peace University course. Whether you ultimately decide to keep your finances separate or together, the information that we had learned about that and understanding the importance of not getting house hungry in our first year of marriage and thinking about real estate as well was critical. The second resource I would highly recommend for every individual, every married couple, is to buy Gary Smalley's book, The 5 Love Languages, and to read it together and to both take the assessment and figure out what your love language is and actually make it a conscious effort to learn your partner's love language and to speak it religiously. So to truly understand that. And I would also recommend that any couples take the DISC profile. So the importance, as I said earlier, to avoid arguments and disagreements and misunderstandings, to better understand your spouse's personality type. If she needs time to go be alone or you need time to go and vent, it's a lot more helpful to just understand that that's how we operate and that's how we function. That's nothing personal. So we don't have to add arguments to the non-argumentative situations.
Thank you very much for sharing these resources. I've personally read the 5 Love Languages, and we read Dave Ramsey's book, and those were really great resources for us because it gives you a different perspective. And even though you might not agree with certain things, there are things that will help you grow or improve your marriage or be able to understand how your spouse wants to be loved or how they want to be treated or how to handle certain situations in your marriage.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Good to relate.
Yeah, it's really, really, really good. I highly recommend the 5 Love Languages and the FPU to any couple that I talk to because I know it's without those 2 resources, I don't know where our marriage will be, but after going through those resources, we're able to improve our marriage a lot and we're able to communicate and relate well with each other. And it really helped us build a strong foundation during our first year.
Awesome.
If there was one advice or there was one lesson that you wish you had known before you got married, what would it be?
I wish, before I had gotten married, I wish I would have understood and taken to heart the fact that people tell you no matter how hard you try, no matter how hard you think you can plan it, the time will come to have children, whether you're trying to or not. And I would just accept and cherish that in that moment whenever it happens, and just go with the flow and embrace that new change in your life as a married couple.
Thank you very much for sharing this advice with us, Jason. And I'm really glad you came here to share your story today. I know you've mentioned a lot about FPEO. You've mentioned about the different family upbringings, and listeners have learned a lot, and they'll be able to apply them in their marriage. Before we let you go, before we end our conversation with you today, how best can our listeners connect with you? And if there's any exciting projects that you're working on right now, or you have any gifts that you want to offer to our listeners, what will be the best way to get those?
Definitely. Anybody that wants to, as Marcus mentioned at the beginning here, I just launched my first book. It's called The Confident Father's Guidebook, 5 Steps to Personal Transformation, Rediscover Your Worth and Live the Life You Desire Today. And for any of Marcus's listeners out there, I have a special gift for you. You can receive the first copy of The Confident Father's Guidebook if you go to jasonpockrandt.com/book. And you can go ahead and opt in there and receive your free gift. You can also find me on Facebook at Jason Pockrandt, or connect with me on Twitter, Jason Pockrandt as well. The second thing I want to mention for all of Marcus's listeners, for everyone out there that appreciates his wisdom and his sage advice as a husband and father, I am in the process of putting together my second book, which is entitled Father-Daughter Conversations, which is a compilation of success stories and wisdom from other fathers raising daughters. And I'm proud to say that our good friend Marcus here will be a contributing author to that book as well. So look forward to that coming out in the near future. And if there's any fathers out there listening that have daughters that would be interested in contributing into the book as well, they can send over a possible submission. They can email me just at jason@jasonpockrandt.com.
I'm glad you are sharing these resources with our listeners. And I'm glad you gave me the opportunity to share my story with anybody who's going to read the book in the near future. And I know it's a book that's going to help a lot of fathers and new dads to be able to navigate the first few years of fatherhood, because it's not an easy journey, but it's one that is definitely precious, and you should enjoy and be proud you're a father.
Absolutely. I'm glad to have you. Glad to have your story that you shared with us. It was really great. So,
listeners, I'm going to put all the links that Jason mentioned, his email address, and the best ways to reach him online in the show notes. So if you are interested in getting any of these resources or connecting with Jason, just go into the show notes page and you should be able to get access to all of these resources and anything that Jason mentioned on today's episode. Jason, thank you very much for coming on the show today. I'm really glad you came to share a story, and I know it's going to impact couples who are listening to us today.
Thank you, Marcus. I appreciate you taking time out to interview me and have me on the show, and let me share my wisdom with your listeners and the couples that look up to you. So I appreciate that.
Okay.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the First Year Marriage Show. To submit a question, feedback, or suggestions for the podcast, visit firstyearmarriage.com/feedback. Apply what you've learned today and build a strong foundation for the happy, healthy, and lasting marriage you desire. Enjoy your marriage. Enjoy your life.